I think there has been a shift across the country. It's still there. I think that there's still this remnants of thought that CTE is for only certain kind of kids. So anyway, I feel what I learned at Rikers was we need to break this system. We need to, this is not justice. And really only public education can focus on this, right? And that's why I'm glad to be in public education for 26, 27 years, right? Because we have to educate everyone. We don't have a choice, right? We can't pick and choose who the kids are. We have to educate every kid who comes into my classroom. And I'm proud of that. But I also want to make sure that when they leave our school, that they're employable. And not just employable, but have a career that they can be happy about, that they can have joy in, that they can support their family, and as a result, support their community.
Hi, I'm Anna Young from Sunnyside Literacy Lab, and you're listening to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence Podcast.
Are you listening? Listening is more than just hearing. It's the engine of transformation. When leaders truly listen, they unlock hidden insights and spark meaningful change. The power of listening turns quiet voices into catalysts for educational excellence and equity. That's why we've launched the XE Listening Tour, a journey dedicated to amplifying every voice, especially those least heard from. This week, seek out and listen to a quiet voice, a student, a colleague, or parent. Let us know what you learn about educational excellence or equity from their story, and record your experience and insights via voicemail at edupxe.com. Your contribution may be featured on this podcast. Are you listening? We are. Join the XE Listening Tour at edupxe.com. This episode is supported in part by Patriox Ultra High Oxygen Content Water. Drinking Patriox helps oxygenate the body, promoting overall health, energy, and vitality. In 2026, try Patriox on your journey for accelerated excellence. Receive a 10% discount on your next purchase with the code EDUPXE. That's 10% off with the code EDUPXE at patriox.us. Patriox.us. Find more details in the show notes. Welcome to EdUp Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. And I'm your host, Jacob Easley II, PhD, PMP. And thank you for returning as we engage with the second part of our conversation with Mr. Prince Johnson, who is the 2026 New York State Teacher of the Year. We left off with him discussing the importance of shifting culture within schools for cross-collaboration, interdisciplinary work. That leads to, from his perspective, joy, deeper learning, and deeper engagement among students. So, Prince, let's jump right back in. So, this is not your first stint in education. So you're teaching history now. First of all, tell us what courses are you teaching? So you're teaching...
I teach AP African American, and I also teach government and economics.
Okay, all right. And so I want to get back to that. But before that, I understand you were teaching at Rikers. So if you could tell us a bit about that experience, but you're going to have to set it up for us because not everyone would know what we mean when we say
yes.
Someone is incarcerated at Rikers or teaches at Rikers?
Right. So I taught 8 years in the Bronx. That was my first years teaching. I taught at alternative high school. And I decided the opportunity through John Jay opened up to many teachers to teach at Rikers Island. It's a correctional facility. It's an island that houses multiple jails. Each jail has a different population. And so at nighttime, I would go to AMKC. AMKC, they're all acronyms. Anna Cross, I believe it was called. AMKC, I would go there and I taught adult men. These were, and this is when I was about 23 years old, all right? 23, 24, 25 years old. I was their age. Teaching them to prepare for the GED. Now, these men, I do not believe, for the most part, were not in my class to learn. They just wanted to be out of their cells. They really just needed some space to be out. And so they would come to my class, and I had a correction officer right outside my classroom. Really unique experience. And this was back in the early 2000s. So I would literally open up a New York Times and we would just talk about what was going on in the news. And sometimes I would have somebody accused of some white collar crime, and they would literally go through the stock market and explain to us, what's a good buy, it's a good sell. It was really an education for me. But what I realized, though, is that many of the men there had learning difficulties and learning disabilities similar to me. And obviously, what I've also noticed is most were from minority communities, right? And I really did not understand. And, I guess I was sheltered, right? Really, my parents sheltered me a lot. Even though I started my life in Brooklyn, I really didn't. I didn't realize this was the real situation, right? It's one thing to read about it or hear about it, but actually see it, to talk to people who have families. But at that point, I realized I needed to learn about the system. I didn't understand this school to prison pipeline. And over time, I realized our school systems were not doing justice for our children, especially the ones like me who would easily hide and fall through the cracks if they don't have a Miss Alexander, right? And a lot of us don't. A lot of us just get passed on. A lot of children just get passed on. They don't have the reading or writing ability. They get passed on to the next grade, the next grade, the next grade. They graduate, but they have no skills. And they really can't function properly, and they have no skills. There's no career technical education. They have no, how can they join the workforce? And so what opportunities are going to really be, not just for them, but for their families and for their communities? And that's when I started taking a look at CTE as a pathway. I feel that CTE really is the pathway, and it's not just for minority communities. It's not just for Black and Hispanic and Indian communities. When I've traveled through the state, I went to certain rural areas of New York State who honestly are living much more poor lives in a lot of ways than anybody in New York City is, right? The resources in some areas, in these rural areas of the state, are really a lot lower than what we have here. And they are suffering the same situation with less resources. And these are white communities. It goes back to the Rust Belt, right? All these factories leaving behind high levels of unemployment that these areas have never recovered from. And what I see between those two communities, whether urban or rural, is CTE can be the answer, the bridge between high school to workforce, right? Whether they have whether they want to go on to college, like most of our students at Food and Finance, most of them, more than 90% go on to college, right? So it's not that CTE, and this is something I think parents are starting to come around, and I think America is coming around. CTE isn't this backup plan anymore. It isn't this, well, it's only for certain kind of kids, right? It's literally for everyone. And I have a 9-year-old son, and I'll tell you right now, I wasn't thinking that way before he was little. I really wasn't. I was like, he needs to go to college just like me. He needs to, become an academic like me. But my mind has changed about that. And if he decides he wants to do a career in technical education and he wants to be an electrician or a welder or a plumber, and he wants to make more money so he can pay my credit card bills, I have no problem with that. So, I think there has been a shift across the country. It's still there. I think that there's still this remnants of thought that CTE is for only certain kind of kids. So anyway, I feel what I learned at Rikers was we need to break this system. We need to, this is not justice. And really only public education can focus on this, right? And that's why I'm glad to be in public education for 26, 27 years, right? Because we have to educate everyone. We don't have a choice, right? We can't pick and choose who the kids are. We have to educate every kid who comes into my classroom. And I'm proud of that. But I also want to make sure that when they leave our school, that they're employable. And not just employable, but have a career that they can be happy about, that they can have joy in, that they can support their family, and as a result, support their community. So yeah, that's why I have been so strongly. And sometimes, you'll see me in a chef coat. I don't wear that in the class, right? I'll wear that in the kitchen when I'm in the kitchen. But I wanted to make sure, even in my New York National State Teacher of the Year pictures with all the other State Teacher of the Year awards, I wore my chef coat, right? I couldn't wear a suit like everyone else. I purposely wore a chef coat because I wanted to give visibility to CT, right? Because even as a civics teacher, I realized this is the path to justice. This is the path to breaking the cycle that we've had for way too long of injustice for so many communities.
Well, that's beautiful. So wearing this chef coat for the ceremony speaks to, in some ways, I'm just going to throw this out there, the importance of breaking bread as sort of the foundations of civics in some ways. And I really like this approach because as you were talking about the importance of CTE, career and technical education, which if I'm going to date myself, and I'm going to do it now, we used to refer to that as vocational ed.
Yeah.
But there was a schism. And there has been, and I think you're right. I think that's starting to erode somewhat, but it probably does exist in certain corners of the world. And it harkens back to the great debates between Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois around should we.
I was thinking that too. It really is an interesting thing. But I think there is this middle path, right, between Booker T. and W.E. Du Bois, right? This idea, Booker obviously thought, got to get those skills, right? You got to be employable. You got to start your own businesses. That's how we lift the community. And then we got Du Bois with the talented tech, right? But I think we can have it both ways. Why not educate our students in both pathways throughout high school and then let the kids decide, right? Whether they want to continue on. I mean, a lot of our students end up in other fields, right? But there are so many soft skills that they learn while they're learning these certifications, right? That it's employable skills in any field. So why not allow our kids to get those things, right? To see what the real world is like before they go into it.
So, Prince, I understand that during your interview, you said that you wanted your legacy to be that of being a great dad. Can you shed some light on that? And
Yeah, that was a question. They asked me what they wanted my legacy to be, and I knew the right answer. I knew the status quo answer was to be, this great teacher, impact education throughout. But what came out was, and I wasn't planning this at all. I just spoke, and I said, I want to be known as a great dad. And the only way truly I feel like I can do that is I don't want to leave this world worse than I got it, right? And whether it's the environment or the politics or the conditions of education, I can't leave it worse than I got. And my hope is that I can be a change maker. I am a change maker, right? I have this opportunity now. I know this is a very special soapbox I have. It's on very special that most teachers never get the chance to, right? And a lot of teachers probably deserved it. But I'm not wasting it. Let me tell you, Jacob, I am not wasting this opportunity because I feel that it's my obligation as a man who wants to be a great dad, who wants to leave this world in a better place. I have to try to make change and push for sustainable approaches. Which I'm really worried about where the world is going. But what's wonderful, Jacob, is I'm meeting likewise people. And sometimes we're like, oh my God, the world, oh my God, look at all the pollution and look at this and that. And then you meet other like-minded people, and there's a lot of people. In fact, my students, when they come into my classroom, they're already well-versed in sustainable approaches. So the education is happening, and I can say from when I first started teaching, it's not like pulling teeth anymore about talking about sustainability. They know it. The kids know about it, and they want to do something about it. So this generation, I have a lot of hope for this generation to move forward and make the changes necessary to alleviate some of these conditions that we're living.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to ask you a question that I find that I'm beginning to ask of teachers when they appear on this show. And in your case, I think this is profound because you are a male teacher of color. You are the current New York State 2026 Teacher of the Year. What can society and school communities do to not only recruit, but to retain talented male teachers of color?
That is a great question. Actually, I gave a speech at an event for Meant to Teach, which is an organization that tries to attract specifically minority men, Black and Hispanic men, into the classroom. And there's studies showing that for children of color, which is the majority of our students in New York City, if they can just have one teacher, one male teacher of color, it has a profound impact on the rest of their educational outcome for our students. I think there's a lot of situations. There's a lot of things we can do. One is I feel like we do attract men of color. The problem is we can't retain. We're not retaining because the system that we have set up doesn't give the support that these men need, right? And so there needs to be a better culture and better awareness from administrators, superintendents of what their needs are. And the only way to do that is to actually have conversations, like pointed questions, right? Pointed discussions about what their needs are to retain them. And, I'm actually part of that, trying to attract teachers to New York City. Right now, what's coming out, I think next month, is New York City Public Schools is coming out with a whole campaign to attract teachers. And I'm actually one of the teachers involved in that. So you'll see, Jacob, soon billboards of me on the subway, and commercials, and radio sound bites of me. It's going to be surreal. I'll say that. But I think that is one thing that we need to do is, and also get into the colleges, really target men of color and create a culture where it's okay to become a teacher, right? Pay is important. I think that's a big portion of it. You got to put food on the table, right? And there's definitely, and that's also a problem with CTE teachers too. It's not just men of color, but why would you go into a field where you can get paid better in another field, right? Even for CTE teachers, if you're a welder, why would you teach when you get paid much better as a welder, right? And in the private sector. So, yeah, I think the unions are working on this. The UFT is working on this. I know that. NYTOTY is working on it, trying to attract. I know a lot of colleges, from Brooklyn College, Queens College, are working on it. The CUNY system is working, but it is a big problem across the country. And, there are many times when you can go your whole education without one Black man as a teacher. And in New York City, how can that happen? Right? It's not even statistically, you would think, impossible. And honestly, I'll say this, Jacob, I did not have a teacher of color till I got to college. Right? I did not have. And when I finally did, it was eye-opening. It was another Miss Alexander moment. Right? I had Dr. Furon, Dr. Owens, absolutely phenomenal professors, filled up classrooms, so engaging, and also showed a different side to history that I really didn't know. I never was exposed to those ideas. And they actually, even though I'm not a Black man, they took me under their wings and helped me and guided me and was a mentor to me. And as children, you need that too. You need mentors. You need somebody who might look like you, or who might understand the same situations you're going through or what your community is going through. And when you go through all these years and you never see someone like you, you got to wonder, how can you blame the kids for feeling unengaged or not feeling like school is for them, or it's not representing who they are? So I think there is an importance, not to say that you have to be a certain community to teach a community. Obviously, I'm Indian, right? I don't fit any community. Most of my kids, I've rarely had an Indian student. Let me just tell you that right now, okay? But I can also say I've experienced things that may help me understand other children, children of color, a little bit better.
Yeah. This episode is supported in part by Patriox Ultra High Oxygen Content Water. Drinking Patriox helps oxygenate the body, promoting overall health, energy, and vitality. In 2026, try Patriox on your journey for accelerated excellence. Receive a 10% discount on your next purchase with the code EDUPXE. That's 10% off with the code EDUPXE at patriots.us. Patriots.us. Find more details in the show notes. Listen. Are you listening? Listening is more than hearing. It's the engine of transformation. When leaders truly listen, they unlock hidden insights and spark meaningful change. The power of listening turns quiet voices into catalysts for educational excellence and equity. We've launched the XE Listening Tour, a journey dedicated to amplifying every voice, especially those least heard from. And we want to hear from you. This week, seek out a voice least heard from, a community member, a parent, or a student. Let us know what you learn about educational excellence or equity from their story and record your voicemail at edupxe.com. Your contribution may be featured on this podcast. Are you listening? We are. Join the XE Listening Tour at edupxe.com. And Prince, I have to ask you because AP African American History is actually a new exam. So if you could, because you're actually probably the first conversation I've had with someone who teaches AP African American History.
Yeah.
Again, and this is a relatively new development. Can you talk about what your experience has been? Have you had any resistance, and what have been some of the joys in doing so?
So I think the whole AP African American nationally only started developing, not developing, but first offered in meal piece about 4 years ago, and a few schools have accepted. And about 3 years ago, I really, once I found out that this was something happening on the AP level, and I've taught all other AP courses before. And I went back to Rutgers University in a sabbatical many years ago to learn more and engage more in African and African American history. I realized, hey, this is something that has to be taught in our school, right? We are a Title I school, right? Over 85% of our kids are receiving free or reduced lunch. It's just a measurement of poverty. Vast majority of our students are Black or Hispanic. And yet we're teaching U.S. history, but we don't have the perspective of what African Americans went, which I believe is so vital for every American to understand. And I think we're still living, the politics of today is that we're still living, in a country where we have not dealt with our ugly history. I went to Germany this past summer, and I saw how Germany deals with the Holocaust. They're not shy about it at all. It's everywhere. You can see it on the ground. They have cobblestones, or tripping stones, they call it, of actual, the location. They mark the location up in front of any place where individuals were taken from, where they used to live, and their name is there, the year they were murdered, and the death camp that they were at. Right? And in America, we're still dealing with this history. And so I got to teach it. And it was a dream come true for me, because this is what I would want to teach 5 periods a day if I could. And the kids want it. In fact, we have a higher demand for that than we have seats for right now. I know across the country, it's not offered at places like Florida, for instance. There's been pushback of including some of the curriculum, specifically things like Black Lives Matter or anything dealing with gay or lesbian history, right? So then I think the AP, the College Board might have edited it to make it more appealing. But even then, it is not allowed to be taught in many, many districts across the country. But luckily, Jacob, I teach in New York City. All right. And that's one thing I can say is that I do have the freedom and we do have push to make sure our students get this education, which I'm lucky. So I haven't received any pushback at all. In fact, I've received a lot of support for the most part. But I know across the country, and I've talked to other teachers across the country, it is a fight in front of our school boards. It's very political to even offer.
Well, thank you for that. And so, again, we're speaking with Mr. Prince Johnson, who is the 2026 New York State Teacher of the Year and the 2025 Gilder Lehrman New York History Teacher of the Year. So,
that's right.
Prince, what is next for you, and how might the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community engage with that work?
Well, I'm already advocating for changes within sustainability and CTE. These two fields with civics, hand in hand, need to be pushed throughout the state. There needs to be more funding. There needs to be more support in hiring teachers, especially CTE, and to retain them just like men of color in education. So I've been working on my public policy chops. Right now I'm in a fellowship called the EPFP Fellowship. And you might know it. I don't know, Jacob, if you do. And so I think next week I'll be going to DC to Capitol Hill and meeting with Rod Menendez from New Jersey and other congressmen. I'm trying to still line them up on that day, next Wednesday. But also I've been going to local community boards. And really that's where a lot of the change happens, is locally. Local politics really has direct impact on our. So I've been going to the community board that is of the Upper West Side, that where our school sits in Hell's Kitchen, and they live in the community. And when they hear, they've asked me to speak there, I think last week, and they are very, very receptive of everything I brought up. And they believe, okay, well, how can we help? And so I'm constantly advocating. Obviously, for me, I'm in this transitional space, learning what my opportunities are. From everything from looking for an EDD program, possibly, to go into, to do a little bit more research into the field, to just networking and seeing the kind of advocacy work I can really do. So that's what I'm hoping to do, more advocacy work and continue my education. That's something is bred into me, is that education is hard.
Well, Prince, it is clear that you are a lifelong learner, and of course, just in that vein, are a role model, or yes, you will be a role model for students to nurture their own sense of lifelong learning. So that's something that is absolutely commendable. But I want to thank you for this time to learn with and from you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
Thank you.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience network of educational podcasts. And we encourage you to participate in our XE listening tour by listening to the educational stories of others and sharing your thoughts with us at edupxe.com. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, YouTube, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.
A special thanks to our research assistant, Emma Worthington, a PhD student of Fordham University's School Psychology program. And we want to hear from you. If you have feedback on this or other episodes, or would like to nominate a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com, where you can leave an email or a voice message. That's edupxe.com.